Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everyone, welcome. This is Justice with the Cows Radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a Cows episode. We keep them jammed, packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, to be able to invest in my counter-racist efforts, co-hosting the Cows Radio program, please visit my blog, justdojustice.today.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
I got an uncle real crazy. My Uncle B, 55 years old, hates white people, married to a white lady. And he sit around going, these crackers ain't shit, except for Susan. And he tried to explain the whole thing to me one day, say, yeah, I got a white wife, I love her, she love me, that's all that matter. But I tell you this, if the revolution ever come, I'll kill her first. Just to show these crackers I mean business. Motherfucking cracker ass, motherfucking cracker. Shit cracker, motherfucker. Hey, hi, honey. Motherfucking cracker, I'll kill my cracker kids too.
Greetings. Justice, Gus T Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of racism, white supremacy. Today's date is, well, I guess depending on where you are in the world, Sunday, May 6th, 2012. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. trying to wait. I think there is a siren of some sort. Hang on. Alrighty. Second program in, I guess, about the span of 4 hours or so. Looking to get right to it. Hopefully it will be a constructive investment of folks' time and energy, people who tuned right back in. If you tuned into the last program, if you didn't hear that last broadcast, no worries. It's in the archives. You can check it out, see some of the things that we discussed. But always, I think, important to have dialogue around racism and health. I don't think enough non-white people consider the corrosive impact that racism has on our health and well-being in all facets, not just how racism, the stress and strain of being abused, contributes to poor health, but also healthcare practitioners and the way that they treat patients and even non-white healthcare professionals and the way that they are treated under the system of white supremacy racism. Real pleasure to have our guest with us on the program. I guess for him this morning, for us this evening, or I guess early morning, depending on how you look at it. He is the chairman for both the Washington State Network for Human Rights, as well as the Central Washington Coalition for Social Justice. He has written extensively on health, medicine, and racism. You can check out quite a few of his articles online. They deal pretty explicitly with racism and the negative impact that it has on the health and well-being of non-white people. Real pleasure to have him on the program with us. I actually didn't even know that he spends quite a bit of his time in Washington State, where I am, although he is not there right now. He's joining us live from the area of the world known as India. Our guest, Dr. Sawraj Singh. Dr. Singh, are you with us?
Yes, I'm very grateful to you and your radio for giving me this opportunity to discuss this very, very important subject.
The pleasure is ours, sir. We appreciate you sharing some of your Sunday morning with us. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, Dr. Singh?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
For those of us who this might be their first time hearing from you, anything that you think would be helpful for our listeners to know about you and the work you do, if you could share a little bit with us, that would be outstanding.
Yes, I am a medical doctor. I am a surgeon, general surgeon, a vascular surgeon, and I had some training in laser surgery. But so that's one aspect. And then I am also a writer. I write in both languages. My mother tongue is Punjabi. Yeah, this is an Indian language. And quite a few people read the Punjabi, my articles in the Punjabi newspapers. And then, of course, I write in English, and that gets translated into many languages, the French, German, almost every major language is some of my articles, because what happens is that whatever it deals with the subject, so like this now French election, and I wrote about Sarkozy, so some of the French papers, translated that and published that one. So being a writer is another aspect, that I write on current events. I live in India, and I have lived in the States, so I have a very good experience of living in the East and the West. So I can compare the East with the West and the current topics. So generally, my articles have elements of both. I have like Eastern perspective, as well as a humanitarian perspective. So, and the third aspect is, besides being a writer, I am also a human rights activist. As you mentioned, that I'm chairman of two organizations which deal with human rights. So I had pretty good experience, not what happened to me and my family, that we were victims of racism. We all suffered, but I also know of other people who approached us, and it's a very serious problem in our society. And a lot of people, many white people don't admit. They think that the minorities are just making it up. They have a feeling that the minorities use racism as an excuse. That's how many white people feel. But it's not an excuse. It's not an imagination of minority people. Racism is a very, very crude, and it's a reality of American society. And unfortunately, that it's not getting any better. It's getting worse, actually. And especially with the minority person being the president of the country, the white people are now using that as an excuse. That they're saying, "Oh, how can there be racism when we have, elected a black person to be the president of the country?" So, but in some way, the racism has increased, because of that, because the white people feel a little threatened, and also they can use it as an excuse. So for those two reasons, the problem hasn't gone away, but it actually, in some ways, it has gotten worse. And in my experience, I have lived in the state since '71, and in the Washington state since '86. So about 25 years in Washington state and about 40 years in the states. And what I have concluded that there are two major pillars of racism in America. One is the police and the law enforcing agencies, and the other is the medical profession. But as far as the law enforcing agencies are concerned, people are very much aware, and all you have to do is see that how many times the police departments and other law enforcing agencies have settled cases of alleged torture and discrimination of the minority. So this is, and there have been movies made on this, even the Hollywood movies dealing with this subject. So many people are pretty much aware that this, racism exists in police and other law enforcing agencies. Even like, very simply, if you are driving and you get stopped by a cop, and many studies have proved that you are more likely to get a ticket if you happen to be a minority. So I'm saying that it doesn't take a genius to figure out that racism exists in police department and law enforcing agencies. But as far as medicine is concerned, a lot of people have very positive impression about the doctors and the medical profession. So this is more deceptive, that they will not expect from this humanitarian profession that they will discriminate or torture or other people, but that unfortunately that's very true. As a matter of fact, in my experience, the racism in medicine is much worse than the racism in police. And overall, in my experience in 40 years, I have seen that most of the doctors, they are extreme rightists, they are racist, they are racially prejudiced. They do not, most of the white doctors, in my experience, they have somewhere, if not consciously, at least subconsciously, that the minority doctors cannot be as good as the white doctors. And that's how their actions, because of their prejudice, when they have to judge their colleagues right away, if they have a minority doctor whose work they are going to evaluate, they will approach that I have to give it to him. They are already have negative feelings because they are already prejudiced that these guys don't do a good job. They are not good doctors, so they are going to not be impartial. On the other hand, if they have to evaluate the work of a white colleague, they are very willing to be very generous. They're willing to ignore his shortcomings as minor points. So the end result, in my experience, has been that for the same charges, the minority doctors will be punished much more severely, and the white doctors will just get a slap on the wrist. So this is, I have in state of Washington, I have seen many good minority doctors, their careers being ruined by the state agencies, the Washington State Licensing Board, and particularly the worst thing I have seen is and this is such a tragedy that this is called, Washington's DSS or this is supposedly an agency which is supposed to help. This is a humanitarian kind of aspect. And in my experience of 25 years in Washington State, the Washington State DSS are now called DHHS. They are the worst. They have selectively gone after the minority doctors, because I have lived there 25 years in Central Washington. I'm yet to see even one white doctor being penalized by them. All the people they have gone after are minority doctors. So, and I have repeatedly requested them to just publish or make it public that what is the racial breakdown of the doctors against whom they took adverse actions. And until now, neither the DSHS nor the Washington State Licensing Board has come up with that information. I can bet my life that once they come out, because they have every reason to hide that, because once they come out, it will be obvious that the minority doctors are being penalized much more than their percentage. So that, and this is what, I have seen that happening in the state of Washington, which is supposedly a liberal state. That's what there is one time I had to go in a court for a traffic-related problem, and the judge wouldn't believe that. I said that I was in the Washington State, in Seattle, in University of Washington area, and I saw the white boys driving, and they went through the stop line, and this police happened to be a woman, but a man would have done the same thing, didn't stop them. But then she came after me, and I was so irate. I said, this is open and naked racism, what you're doing. You're treating white versus non-white people with such, and I said, Seattle is supposed to be very liberal, city. And I went to the judge, and I explained to him the same thing, and he said, "Oh no, this cannot happen in Seattle. These things happen in the South." So this is a big tragedy that this is happening in a state which is perceived to be very liberal. One could, it's not hard to imagine what will happen in the states which are quote unquote conservative, or so. Even this is happening in a liberal state. So the point is that neither liberal nor conservative, I feel that America is founded on the principles of racism. The American capitalism racism is an integral part of that. So it's not just that some doctors or some policemen are promoting racism. The foundation of our society is on racism. Because the capitalist system itself promotes racism. Because they want to divide people. That's the only way. Because how else a system like that will survive when there's such an obvious that in the last, since President Reagan took over and there is a right shift. Anybody can see the statistics that the gap between the rich and the poor has widened, and anything you can see that the wealth in America is being monopolized by the 1% top. So you apply any. So the healthcare is no exception. All the studies, there are many studies which clearly show that the health of the minorities is much worse than the health of the white, if you compare them to the health of the white population. There were, to the extent that there were some actors and they pretended to be patients, and they were treated differently. If they were white, they were for the same. They said that this is my problem, and they were given different advice. They were treated differently. But for the black people or other minorities, the same doctors recommended a different treatment. And generally speaking, for the white, the recommended treatment is better, and for the blacks and other minorities, for instance, if you have some problem with the leg, so the chances are that the white person is going to get a treatment which is going to save his leg, but the black will get the treatment recommendation which will more lean toward amputating the leg. So there's a less likelihood of saving the limb of a black as compared to white. So there's plenty of data available there for that. And the statistics are so clear that you can take, the life expectancy in America is different for all races. The white people, there's a big drop when you come to blacks, and then again the Hispanic people and the Native Americans have very less, life expectancy compared to the whites. Same way, if you take the infant mortality, that in other words, a black or a minority child has much less chance of survival compared to the white. So I think there's not even a question that somebody can say that no. There's the statistics are hard facts which everybody has to accept. But where is the difference? The difference is where is the racism hiding in the medical profession is the doctors, how they treat their colleagues and how they treat other healthcare workers. That's where there's no transparency. There are no studies, clear studies showing that. Nobody has come forward, let us say, to show that the adverse actions taken against the minority doctors and compare that with the adverse actions taken against the white doctors. And I think that is one study which America deserves, that first of all, we should have statistics in the nationwide, that all over the country what is happening. Then we should have a breakdown in each state. Each state licensing board and the other agencies should come forward and say, look, these are the doctors against whom we took adverse action, and out of these, how many were whites, how many were blacks, how many were Hispanic, how many other Asian Americans, so on. And then they should compare those statistics, those figures, with the population of different communities. And if there's a disparity, then that licensing board or that state agency or insurance company or hospital, they should be investigated. Why is there a disparity? Why is you are taking more adverse actions against the minorities compared to the whites? They should owe an explanation to the American people. Why? So I think that is something which is very, very much needed today to show that not only the patients but the doctors and the healthcare workers themselves, they are not treated at par. They are subjected to different standards, and so long we have that, then we can never have a racism-free society, because when we have already accepted the notion that we can live with different standards, with different races. So we have a stage set for racism, and unfortunately, we haven't done much to change that situation. And the other fact, and I think that has not been, again, there's no study, but this is my impression over 40 years, that generally political orientation of doctors, I'm talking about the vast majority of white doctors, they are extremely rightist. Many of them are racially prejudiced and racist, and they support the extreme right-wing, the section of the Republican Party. They were the most ardent supporters of President Bush. And I have repeatedly said that when America, if not changed, if the racism is not properly addressed, America is going down the drain. America will no longer be a superpower. The only superpower status in the American era, thanks to people like Bush and these white racists, they are the one who are responsible for letting America down. And I have no qualms about this. Then when the history will be written of American downfall, the single most person responsible will be President Bush. And all those people who have supported Bush, they share in the decline of America. They are the one. But President Bush had the maximum support from these white doctors. Most of them, they were the most ardent supporters of. Here they are. Their policies they claim to be patriotic. They are doing it for America, but they are the ones who are hurting America the most. Not only they are ruining America, they are also posing danger to the whole world, because if they don't change their attitude, the racial problem in America is going to get worse and worse, because they cannot change the population patterns. It is, whether they like it or not, America is going to be a country where minorities will outnumber white people very soon. So if the majority of the population feels alienated, so that country cannot have a good future. Number two, that if they don't change their attitude, if they don't fundamentally change their approach, this racial division I'm afraid can lead to a racial war in America too. A lot of people may think that this is, too much to say, but I think there's a realistic danger, about that. And I have seen in Southern California, and I was amazed. I went, from Seattle to one city in Southern California, and I saw these people with big Mexican flags. So what happens is that as these white people hate the minorities, there is a reaction. So and many people have seen. There's a city in Yakima in Washington State, and there, people. I have heard the white people complaining that the Cinco de Mayo is celebrated with more enthusiasm than July 4th. And I was, surprised when I went to this Southern California city that there were huge, Mexican flags waving on the cars and jeeps and all because people, if the Mexican Americans don't feel that the white people are treating them like Americans, so this produces a resentment, and they identify more and more strongly with Mexico. And then the white people complain that, look, these people are living in America and they're waving Mexican flags. But who is making them do that? If you don't own people, if you give the feeling that they don't belong here, then what else they are going to do? So the white person is responsible for Mexican not feeling loyal to America. If they say that they are not loyal, then it's your fault, because you don't own them. You don't give them the feeling of belonging. And that's why, and unless we change things, unless we penalize these white doctors and these state agencies, and I think their crimes are much more than if a doctor is not doing a good job. Yes, that's not good, but but he cannot do as much harm as these agencies and these doctors are doing, because they are, number one, they are threatening the whole America, the peace in America, because if this process goes on and on, eventually we will have a race war. Number two, that if we don't stop, the America's declining in the global affairs, American influence is declining. So what we have, this present what we call unipolar system, where America is the only superpower in the world. But that's not going to last very long, because we have other countries which are emerging, and so we are headed for what I have called a multipolar world. I am the person who coined this term, that the world will be very different very soon, because instead of America as one power center, we will have different power centers. There will be China, there will be Russia, there will be Brazil, and so on. And in that, America could have a very big edge, because America is a multicultural society, and the multipolar world will suit it just fine, better than other countries, because America is so diversified. But unfortunately, we are not taking our diversity as an asset. We are treating it as a liability. And if this process goes on, that means we are going to resist the diversity in America. We are going to deny that America is a multicultural society, and that increases tensions in America. But that is not only hurting America internally, but America, when it projects the same policy at a world level, so it is going to resist the multipolar world too. And so, in other words, America is bound to come into conflict with other emerging power centers, China, Russia, and so on. So what it means is that America will eventually get the world pushed into a third world war, and there's no way America can win a third world war. It will be completely different than the First World War and the Second World War. So this is a foregone conclusion that, if the Russia and China and the other countries line up against them, there's no way that we have the ability to defeat them. So, in other words, the racism is pushing America to a race war internally, and this is pushing America to get sucked into a third world war which it cannot win. So this is disaster at home and disaster abroad. So we have to very, very, very seriously question people who, under the name of patriotism, promote racism, because there's nothing more unpatriotic in America than promote racism. Because that is the fundamental reality of America today, is that America is a multicultural society, and we have to learn to live together. We have to accept that there is no one culture which is the exclusive culture. There is no one language. Even those people say, they say English only. Nothing can be farther from truth. I have lived in central part of Washington, and I can tell you that there in the central Washington, near Yakima and go to south of Yakima, there are people who never speak English. All their life they speak Spanish. So are we not going to accept them as Americans because they don't speak English? And I know that in one instance, a woman who was an owner of a restaurant put a sign that English spoken only. If you will be only served in this restaurant if you speak English. And if you have that kind of attitude, then you certainly that will promote what I gave that scenario, a race war at home and a third world war abroad. So this is because we have to accept that people speak different languages, and language means a culture. Language is the foundation of a culture. If different languages are spoken in America today, that only means that there are people living here who belong to different cultures. So it's not something we have to impose, multiculturalism or concept of diversity. But it is the reality of America today. It's the ground reality. So anybody who denies reality can be called sick. What is the definition of a mentally sick person? That who either does not understand reality or his perception of reality is distorted. So here you are, the whole society has gone sick, because if they are not accepting the reality, that's a different question. Whether you like it or not like it, that's an entirely different question. But the fact remains that America is a multicultural society. And the fact is that there are different languages spoken. The fact is that there are large areas in every American city where people speak another language and they don't speak English. So does that make those people any less human beings? Does that not speaking English makes them less Americans? So obviously that's absurd argument. You cannot judge somebody's loyalty or patriotism by which language they speak. So those people who say that only English should be spoken here, they are the most anti-American. They are the people who are leading America to the wrong. They're leading America to not to accept its realities. So they are doing more harm by saying that. In other words, if somebody says, let us accept what we have, that doesn't make him less American, that doesn't make him less patriotic. Actually, that person is more patriotic, that he is helping us to accept the reality, which one of the things, once a person who is mentally sick, when he accepts reality, he becomes normal. This is the treatment. So actually the person who is making us accept reality, that person is, I would, in my books, he is a true American, he is a true patriot. So, and that's where I have seen in the medical profession that there are many doctors, the white doctors, to them American means being white. They don't treat either a patient or another fellow colleague. If they happen to be not white, they are not given the same treatment. So here we are, that these people, they are doing tremendous harm to this country, and still the irony is, the tragedy is that these people feel that they are the most patriotic and they are the most true Americans. When they are destroying this country, how can they be patriotic? So this is what our emphasis should be, to somehow expose these. Hello?
Oh, yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you. Yes, sir.
So what I'm saying is that what we have to do is to expose and confront racism in medicine. If we want to expose and confront racism in America, the medical profession is the most, I think, important, the central of this, And I would want to give a quotation from Martin Luther King. Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. So this is Martin Luther King said that. And I think that's so true that he said it maybe 50 years ago, but it's very much true today too.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's one more quotation I would like to give. This is from Einstein. The world is a dangerous place not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing. So this is what is happening, that we are we are doing nothing about racism in medicine. We are, as I said, that actually I have seen, particularly in black community, that that there have been many, like whenever there is a case of any police torture or against any black person, the whole community kind of organizes and opposes it and protests. But I have never seen either a black doctor or a black patient being not given the same treatment as his white colleagues, and the black community will come to his rescue. That's where the tragedy is. That's where that somehow we feel that the physical injury, because when the police, brutality cases, there's a physical injury involved, and everybody can see the bruises. And I have I lived in Ellensburg, and like more than 90% white, and there was a black boy, he was beaten by the police, and I know I stood for him, and then the police, settled and apologized and all that. So it is easy to see that the bruises and the injuries inflicted on this black person by the police, and everybody convinced, yes, this is a police brutality. But the doctors, they are doing much worse. They are not inflicting physical injury, they are inflicting mental injury. Or mental injury is much worse than the physical, because the wounds cannot be seen by other people. So they don't evoke, the same kind of response. So that's why we have to do it. That's why what Einstein, says that we are just looking on, we are doing nothing. And we have to do something, that we have to say to these doctors, that you are worse than the policeman, that because you are inflicting mental injury, and mental injury is worse than the physical injury.
Context.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Right here. Context of White Supremacy. Again, our guest joining us live from India, Dr. Sawraj Singh. Wow. Lots of info. I hope, folks, if you are listening in, if you have questions, the number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. You can dial that line if you have questions. Definitely want to take advantage, get a chance to ask someone questions from the medical field. Wow, you said so much. I have several questions that I wanted to ask to go into more detail about some of the things that you touched on. I did want to ask, just in terms of a definition for racism, the definition that I use for racism, I use the same definition for the term racism and white supremacy. I use those two terms as synonyms, and I use the same definition for both terms. The definition I use... I'm going to give you my definition, and then you can tell me if you think it's accurate or not.
Sure, please.
The definition I use for both racism and white supremacy is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that is an accurate definition, and do you think such a system exists?
I absolutely agree with you. This is my, experience of living for 40 years in America. That's very true, very true. And unfortunately, when the very first incident, one of the very first incidences, was very shocking to me, when a very prestigious, respectable black, professor, who was named by the Times magazine as one of the 25 most influential people in America, was arrested for breaking into his own home. And, that was very, very sad that, we couldn't, that police officer who did that was actually invited to the White House and had beer with our president. I think that person should have been severely penalized, instead of being, the white people made him a hero, for doing this. So this is what you are saying is I cannot agree more with your definition.
Wow. Wow. I just to clarify, I do think this is a global problem. I think it's beyond the United States. I think this is a worldwide problem, racism, white supremacy, of white people dominating the entire planet. I think people use different terms, imperialism or colonialism or Western aggression, but I think all of those, they're talking about white supremacy as a worldwide problem. Do you think racism, white supremacy exists as the dominant force on the planet right now?
Absolutely. What I feel, what I think is that the last 2 centuries, what I call the centuries, this 19th and 20th century, these are centuries of Western domination. This is the Western capitalist system is dominating in these 2 centuries. And I feel that Western capitalism is based upon racism. This is based upon the notion that the white race is superior to the other races. So long the Western capitalist system is existing, the white supremacy and racism cannot be eliminated. That's my belief.
Wow. Context of white supremacy. I wanted to ask, I had 2 questions. I'll keep my eye out for questions from listeners as well. I guess I'll start with the one that I hadn't thought of as much. When you talked about, you had this in one of your articles, you touched on it earlier about the racism that non-white medical professionals face. And I think that's an aspect that people don't touch on as often. And you have, this is in one of the reports that you have on confronting racism in America. And you write that primary care physicians, wrong one. You write, the racial breakdown of the victims of the disciplinary and adverse actions should be made public to answer the question about minority doctors being punished out of proportion to their numbers. In my 25 years of practice in the state of Washington, I have repeatedly seen the minority physicians become victims of the Department of Social and Human Services and the Washington State Licensing Board. However, after repeated requests, no investigation to prove or disprove these allegations has been carried out. And I just more detail, because I don't think most people, when they talk about racism in the healthcare industry, they talk about patients being mistreated and not given access to care. They never seem to get to even non-white doctors, black doctors. They too get mistreated by other white people in their profession. Can you go into a bit more detail about what you've seen?
This has been my repeated experience, constant experience, that what I have seen is that the white doctors, most of them, there are exceptions to every rule, but I'm talking about a majority. They do not treat the minority doctors at par. They harbor this prejudice that somehow the minority doctors are not as good as we are. So this is a very big prejudice they have. And out of that prejudice, when they have to evaluate other doctors, their other doctors' work, so they're already approaching from prejudice because of this. I know that these are no good, So that's what is happening. But the problem is that a lot of people have, there's no transparency. Nobody has really questioned that to make them public the racial breakdown of the doctors against whom they have taken adverse action. And I'm very, very sure that people will be shocked that if these statistics come out, a lot of people, they will not believe that how much racism is in the medical profession. As I said, that I have seen this in state of Washington, and I'm pretty sure this is happening in the rest of the country too, because Washington, as many people feel, is a very liberal state. And if that is happening in state of Washington, one can imagine that it's probably happening everywhere else too, in other states too. And I have repeatedly seen that most of the doctors I know against whom adverse action has been taken happen to be minorities. So at least there is not a correlation between the percentage of doctors from that community and the percentage of the doctors who got punished. So there's a very, very big, there's gap there or difference there. And the second thing I have noticed that even if some white doctors were charged with very serious offenses, in the end somehow they got out of it. On the other hand, I have seen that the minority doctors were their practice was completely destroyed. They had to leave the practice or leave the profession. But I haven't seen the white doctors doing that. So there are two differences. Number one, that the minority doctors are being picked up more. Their chances of being investigated are higher. And number two, that after investigation, they are given more severe punishment compared to their white colleagues. And I'm sure that this is what we need, that we have to force them to come out with these like statistics where they see that how many people were investigated, what is the racial breakdown of that state, what is the racial breakdown of the people who are investigated, and is there any difference? What for the same offense was the white doctors given less punishment or they were given same punishment? I think these are the questions we need to ask, and I think we need very much transparency in these matters. The licensing boards and these different state agencies and the insurance companies and the hospitals, they should be obligated to keep this data. That like some of the police departments, they had to do it. They had to, every time a policeman issues a ticket, they have to write down the race. So that itself was a deterrent, that once the police knew that this is, a factor, so this is going to affect their decision to issue a ticket, because it's my God, somebody is going to come and say, I'm only giving tickets to the non-whites. So same way, if the licensing boards and the state agencies and the hospitals and the insurance companies, they are going to, know that if they know that somebody is going to ask us, we will be questioned about this, about the racial breakdown, I'm sure that they will not be doing with the same frequency and same intensity as they are doing. So that will itself be a deterrent if they know that they have to be held accountable on this, matter too.
Do you think it's possible when non-white healthcare professionals, when they're being unjustly disciplined, and you said even in some cases forced out of their profession, do you think the white people who are doing this, that this is a conscious act to try to abuse non-white doctors?
In some cases, yes. This is almost like a conspiracy, that I can give you my example that I have, that how it happens, that there was a case, which I was treating as a surgeon, but there were other doctors involved in the hospital. There were medical doctors and other specialties, and the patient died, and the autopsy showed that the surgery had nothing to do with the death. But will you imagine that I am singled out for a lawsuit, none of the other doctors being, neither the hospital nor any other doctor being involved in the lawsuit, when the autopsy shows that surgery had nothing to do with the patient's death. So this is what is happening, that I will consider that a racist conspiracy. That I cannot think of any term less than that. That. So this is happening. That this is both. This is happening consciously and subconsciously. That, as I said, that the majority of white doctors are prejudiced against the non-white doctors because they think they are not as good as we are. So right away that sets up a stage for discrimination. Number two, there are other doctors, white doctors, who go beyond that. They are actively want to punish or hurt the minorities. And I think that we should make very, very strict laws that if that intention is proven, that should have very, very, very serious punishment for these doctors, because I will go to the extent they are committing treason. If they are deliberately inciting racism, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a state agency, insurance company, they should be considered a treason to the country, that they are, because that's what they're actually committing, because they are promoting by inciting racism. They are inciting the racial division, and they threatening the integrity of the country. So, but to me, that's a treason. So we should have very, very, very serious, to make these people very aware of the fact that if they deliberately engage in hurting minorities, then that is above and beyond just a mistake. That is a very, very, very serious offense for which they should be punished with the most severe punishment in the country.
Wow. Have you seen just non-white healthcare practitioners? Have you seen examples where the mistreatment that they were encountering, it was so great that it made them consider or reconsider whether or not they wanted to continue to participate in the healthcare field?
Oh yes, I have seen people who gave up their practice. I know personally, the minority doctors, because of this problem, they closed their practice or even moved out of country. So they were actually forced to, in a way, they were forced to close their practice.
Wow. Context of White Supremacy, folks. Excellent information, Dr. Singh. I see some people do have questions. I'll go to the phone line so I can get some of the folks for it. Just to thank you all for staying up so late, I'll hit the phone lines. One of the people in the chat room, they just wanted to confirm. They wanted to know, are you, I guess, is your ethnicity Punjabi or Tamil?
Yeah, I'm a Punjabi, Punjab, yes. This is in the northwest of India. Tamil is in the south, the Punjab is in the north of India.
Okay. Other person who called in, last four digits, 2736. Did you have a question for Dr. Singh?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Gus.
Oh, D-Train, right on. Good to hear from you, D-Train.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Singh. I've been in contact with you as well.
Hello?
Hey, good evening, Dr. Singh. I've been in contact with you as well.
Good evening.
Yeah, I had two questions. One is how have, if you've had white patients, and I'm sure you have, how have your white patients, I guess, treated you? And number two, did you notice, you said that you've noticed in general that minority doctors, non-white doctors, get mistreated. Did you notice any sort of hierarchy in the level of mistreatment that non-white doctors received based on ethnicity, whether they were Black African or Black American or East Asian, et cetera, et cetera?
So, if I understand your questions correctly, the one you are saying that what is the attitude of the white patients, towards minority doctors. So, that's generally speaking, the patients are much nicer, because my patients are, majority of my patients, I practice in a very big community where more than 90% or 95% community was white. So naturally most of my patients were whites. And the patients like good care, so they were very nice to me. My patients were very nice to me, and they will tell me, they will say that the doctor so and so, they were being incited, by the other doctors, and even sometimes by the state agencies and federal agencies to say bad things about me, and the patients will come and tell me that. So I think that the patients are very less discriminating. They are the white doctors. They are the one who try to prejudice the patients against me. But many patients will come and tell me that they are trying to do that. So I had no problem with the patients as such. And even if I had a problem with the patients, this was because some of the people, fell victim to conspiracy. So I don't blame the patients. They were incited by the doctors and the other agencies and so on to go against them. So again, I would say that patients are by and large very fair. And if you treat your patients so well, they respond, and many patients, came to me and they say, "You tell us, we will stand by you." So this is and many of my patients told the other white doctors on their face, when they try to prejudice them against me, they will say that we don't want to hear that about our doctor. He's a good doctor. We know that he's a good doctor. So I had a good experience with the patients. And I don't. The second question here is that if I may understand this question, that hierarchy, by what I will say that there is the economics comes. This is what I feel honestly, that the white doctors are a big factor in their treating the minority doctors not right is because of their economic interest. They unfortunately they perceive if you are a good doctor, then they perceive threat to their practice, that you are going to take patients away from them or what. So in that sense, that more than hierarchy, there is economics. That they are using racism to further their economic interests, and it's so easy for them that, let us say, if my competitor is a white, so it's very easy for him to line up the other white doctors against me if he raises the issue of the race. And that's exactly what happened with me. The other surgeon in the town, he repeatedly lined up other doctors, even they didn't like him, they liked me more. Many of them admitted, but then again, he will, when it, he works on their soft spots, and it's easy, unfortunately, we all have certain soft spots, and somebody works on them, and so he could line up this. So I think that one of the tragedies of our system is that the doctors are, kind of more raised as economic, they're like business people, So we haven't kind of freed medicine and from that business, We think that it's okay that whatever laws apply to the other businesses can apply to medicine, whereas I think that the historical experience is very different, that right from the old ancient times, medicine was treated differently than other businesses, that it had a spiritual aspect, that even in the native tribes, the medicine man was treated differently than the other people, that, and even in the ancient Greek, they had a very strong spiritual element in the practice of medicine. That so unfortunately we are lacking that. When we have in the Western capitalist system, we have kind of made medicine as just like any other profession, like any other business. And so I think the underlying, and it's not only in medicine, but I think that the association of Western capitalism with racism is again because the Western capitalists used race as a as a means to promote their financial interests, So this is a twin problem: the racism and capitalism. So long as capitalism, the racism will not be eliminated.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
No problem.
See here, D-Train with Reckless 2.0. Always good to hear from D-Train. See, I believe this is Joe from DC. Joe in DC. All of our late hour people calling in. Joe from DC. Did you have a question for Dr. Singh?
Yes. Can you hear me, guys?
If you can speak up a little bit.
Can you hear me now, guys? Is that better?
Yes, sir.
I work at night, so I'm always up. So whenever you have a show, I'm always here. Good morning, Dr. Singh. How you doing tonight? Today?
Could you please, I have little difficulty in hearing you. Please, can you repeat the question a little bit?
Okay.
Yeah, a little better.
My question is, Dr. Singh, when you came to America from India, did you feel a sense of solidarity with partnering with African Americans or Africans or non-white people to kind of band together against Caucasians, or you felt a sense of solidarity only when you started noticing racism?
very, very early on, I could feel the solidarity, particularly with black people. I was in Chicago doing my internship, and I had to take care of a patient who was a Black Panther. And so I got to know a little bit about black people from him, from one of my patients there. And all my stay in America, I have felt very close to black people. I have felt a very strong solidarity with black people, and I'm a member of NAACP, and NAACP has honored me, more than one occasion. So I think that I feel even today that out of all minorities, the black people are most organized. They are doing more than, and I have repeatedly told the Asian and other communities that we should learn from the blacks. That the black people have more experience in how to address the racial issues and other things. And so, to answer your question, yes, I have from very early on. From like very. As I said, in Chicago, when that was in 1971, that was the first hospital I worked in Chicago, and there were many black patients, and and this particular patient was a Black Panther, and so I felt very close to. I understood, that what black people were subjected to and what they were doing, and I still till today I have the feeling that blacks are better organized than other minorities, that they are doing more to fight racism than any other minority is doing. That's my feeling then, and that's my feeling today.
So if you feel that way, in your opinion, why would you, in your opinion, why do you think non-whites, when they come to America, they tend to side more with Caucasians than they would with African Americans, then as though if you state that racism is global, then they are in it. So if you even look at India, you can see how the U.S. has exploited India for cheap labor, cheap products, and if that's the case, in your opinion, why do you think other non-whites, when they come to America, they side more with Caucasians than they would with non-whites and non-whites?
You are very right, because what happens is that there is a propaganda that you very rightly pointed out that actually India is America is using India against China. So right, you are there. You are that we are using one minority against the other, and the white person has done that. In India they have done that, used one group of people against the other. So this is what the Western capitalism is notorious in that they have never allowed their opponents to unite. So there is you're right that the minority people come and they would rather, as you said, they feel closer to the whites than the blacks, and this is very unfortunate. But this is the propaganda that the Western capitalism does, that they somehow that this is a anti-minority feeling, that people want to identify with the dominant group, that, and that's what, when you come from so you understand the white people are dominant group in America, so a lot of people will, and this is to a degree a natural tendency too, and also that people are coming for a better future, and so they think that they'll be better off if they deal with the dominant group. So unfortunately there is a self-interest, but also I think that the Western capitalism has historically deepened the divisions between. They never will allow minorities to unite. So so our people are victims of that. They don't understand that they. And somehow they will say, okay, we don't like blacks, but Indians are okay. That's so they will give that. But when it comes to white versus Indian, then they will not hesitate to crush the Indians. But somehow that they give this impression to and this is what I have seen all my life, that the whites will somehow give this impression, and even if they don't like, they will say, okay, we hate you less than we hate the blacks, So that then it's easy to fall victim in their trap,
My last question, I wanted to ask from a cultural standpoint. I just read a survey where I think it was India was actually #1 in the country that have eaten less meat. And with India being one of the oldest cultures in the world, how do you, when you come to America and you see all the chemicals and stuff that's placed in the food, when you study, when you learn about slavery with African Americans, you see that we have a bad diet due to slavery. What are some of the things that you're doing or your organizations are doing to help African Americans kind of adjust their diet to more of a vegan diet compared to a meat diet that we have here in the United States?
Yeah, we have been, as I said, I have been a member of very active member of the NAACP, and in Central Washington, we tried to raise the awareness among the black people about the health conscious, health issues. And as you said, that I have given talks about the vegetarianism, and that the meat eating is not very healthy as has been promoted, as you read. That so we try to make, at least in that the Central Washington area, the black people aware of these health problems and all this. Hello?
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good to hear from you, Joe, from D.C. I know we had, I think the last time that we had a guest on the program who was born in the area of the world known as India, she touched on the global impact of white supremacy and how one major component of that is that everyone, including non-white people, has developed a disregard for black people, a disdain for black people. And she talked about how that was very prevalent in India, both in the skin bleaching creams and just mistreatment and abuse of darker complexion Indian people. Can you touch on that if you've observed that as well?
Yes, unfortunately, she's very right, because what we have to understand that what happened in India was that India was originally inhabited by a black race, with Dravidian, the darker skinned people, And then we have a lighter skin, the white people came, they called Aryans, they came from they were Caucasian, so they conquered those, darker people. And so in India, somehow, from many, many thousands of years, there was a prejudice against the darker skin, so this was one element that unfortunately, that because the white people defeated the darker people, so they, kind of considered them inferior to that. So there was a prejudice already in the society that somehow darker complexion is, associated with lower socioeconomic status, and being a lighter complexion means that the fairer complexion means that you are socioeconomically better off. So this is, but then you have when India became a colony of the Europeans, the English, so they worked on that, and they could, any differences they could use to divide people, they certainly used to their advantage. So there was already an existing problem, but then they added fuel to the fire. They made it worse. So unfortunately, that is still the case, that there is a prejudice in India that against the darker skinned people. So that by extension will affect Indians coming to America or any other country where people from white and black. So naturally they have this tendency to consider white as superior to black. So unfortunately that. But again, this is we have all some prejudices. But once we know the reality, that what I have done, I have always tried to convince the Indian people that whatever may be your prejudices, but the fact remains that in the final analysis, our lot is with the minorities, not with the whites. So that's something to understand, that the white people, when it comes to the final division, no matter how much we say white people, we love you, they will still not own us. They will consider us, push us to the minority. So when the division is like, so what I have said that we should divide like this. So number one, that I advise to the Indian people that we are minority, so we have more in common with minorities. Black people are minority, we are minority. So naturally, no matter what we feel about them, but our plight has more similarities. We are in the same boat. And number two, I say that even among the whites, that we should see if there are some whites, people who love fairness, who love justice, they are welcome in our boat. They can come anytime. If they want to stand up for fairness and justice, we welcome them.
Oh, wow. Context of white supremacy. I'm a black male, victim of white supremacy, and I guess some of my listeners, they would say that their experience, and even the last guest that we had on the program who was born in that area of the world, she said that some of her family, so at least one of her family members is a doctor, and he abused his black patients. He didn't give them the same treatment, the same care, the same professionalism that he did to his white patients and or his Indian patients. And I think for a lot of black people, they feel that when it comes down to it, so-called or Indian people, other non-black people, they are not going to identify with and seek to ally with black people, that they are going to seek to join up with white people because they have more power, they have more resources, and that would be the logical business decision to make. And they feel very skeptical about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's always there's a tendency to go with the dominant group, that, but what I feel that this is an illusion, that when I know that when the Indian people, when they become victims of racism, then they realize those people, then they're feeling change when they get it from the white supremacy, then because Indian people somehow presume that the white people will welcome them with open arms, but then they have a kind of rude awakening when they are subjected to the racist treatment. Then they realize that their mistake. But again, it is the tragedy that we have to overcome. That the objective reality and perception are two different things. This is our perception, that the perception of many Indian people that the white people are better, they are superior, so they feel closer to them. But the objective reality is different. The objective reality is that the white people are threatened today by any minority. So I don't think the white supremacists like any minority, whether it's blacks, whether it's Indians, whether they're Hispanic, whether they're other Chinese or Filipino, whatever. So that's where the other people are making mistakes. If they think that the white people are only going to go after the blacks or they're going to go after the Hispanics, then, and I have, unfortunately, this is very sad, but I have said, if it worse come to worse, if there is a race war, believe me that Indians will not be scared by the white people either. They should face this truth, that. So no matter how much they like white people, but if a race war breaks down in America, you will see then the white people will hit all the minorities. So that's what I feel.
Context of white supremacy. Is the skin, this is from one of the listeners in the chat room, is the skin bleaching and the skin creams, is that still a major problem in India? And can you touch on that a bit?
Oh yes, that this is so true that in India that that people, as I said, that associate the fair complexion fairer complexion, the lighter complexion with a higher socioeconomic status. So there's always an incentive to look more, look more quote unquote white. So that's why this has been a problem, and this is a problem. But it's not only, unfortunately, I don't know how you will take that, but Michael Jackson, I think that's a tragedy that he was forced to do something like that too. He tried to, bleach and become a little lighter, to me, I call that a tragedy, that if we feel that by bleaching our skin and becoming lighter, we become a better person somehow. I think this is a great tragedy, that a person becomes better not by the color of his skin, but by his deeds, by his character. So we have to acquire if we want to be a better person, we better acquire some better qualities, not just to bleach our skin,
I totally agree. I know I agree. That is a tragedy. Michael Jackson, victim of white supremacy. I even heard a white person say that white supremacy racism killed Michael Jackson. And I think that is an accurate statement. In fact, Sammy Sosa, I don't know if you are familiar with him. He was a Major League Baseball player in the United States. And he was, I think, from the Dominican Republic. And he used some skin bleaching creams, and same thing as Michael Jackson. I know black people around the world have that problem as well. Jamaica, there's a great documentary talking about the damage of the skin bleaching creams, and tons of black people in Jamaica using them as well. So I totally agree. It is a major problem worldwide for all of the non-white people victims of racism.
I may ask you one question, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think one of the other things I see that, this is extension of the same problem. This is a manifestation of the same problem, that many of the black, accomplished athletes, they have white wives, that I think that to me also is sort of, a problem, that why they feel that somehow that being closer to white people, enhances their status or something, that. Do you agree, have I made this correct observation or not,
I could not agree more, Dr. Singh. We are on the same page. I think that is a huge problem. I think it sends a terrible message to especially younger black people, especially children, or really non-white people worldwide. I think it sends a horrible message that in order to be successful, or when you become quote-unquote successful and you have a lot of money, you should try your best to be with a white person, to be with a white woman, or to be with a white man, that is the best thing that you can do to enhance your image of quote-unquote success. I think it is a horrible problem. I think it sends out a terrible message, and I think it should be spoken out against regularly. I totally agree, Dr. Singh.
Thank you so much. I had that feeling. What we should do is that, how can we mobilize people to confront, racism in medicine? As I said, this is very, very important that we have, compared to racism in other, like in police or in jobs and other, somehow we haven't, gone after racism in medicine with the same gusto, with the same intensity, and we should be doing that, and I think that what we should do is that whatever we can do at an individual level, that everybody should think, everybody should feel that what can I do, to confront this, expose and confront this problem. And I think one of the things we are doing is just what you are doing right now, that we are discussing this problem. That's a great, I think you deserve a lot of credit for the discussion we are having right now. But then there are other steps that people can write to the newspapers, they can write to their legislators, and they can protest. They can, if we feel that there's a discrimination by an institution, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a doctor's group, or it's an insurance company. Wherever there is a perceived racism, people should protest and picket those, and so I think we should expose more and this problem wherever we can.
I could not agree more. Absolutely. As I said, I didn't know as much about the racism that non-white health professionals face, but I think just listeners getting this information from you, I'm hoping that they will do more, that they will share this with other non-white people and encourage people to speak out. I think that's one of the best things that we can do. It's the same thing that you're saying. The information, the statistics about which healthcare professionals get punished and the severity of those punishments, get that information out. I think the more informed people are about how big a problem this is, that will motivate more people to work on getting a solution. So I'm in complete agreement, Dr. Singh. I think this is our caller in Brooklyn. Caller in Brooklyn, did you have a question for Dr. Singh?
Hey, good evening. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to ask what the doctor thinks about the role that stress plays on a person's physical health, and just like people people talking about.
I have difficulty again listening to you. Please could you somehow speak louder, or maybe you can repeat his question. Hello?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I was just asking, what do you think about the role that stress plays on a person's physical health, and just like, with a problem such as, racism, and if a person avoided speaking about it, like a buildup of stress, like what type of role that could play in a person's physical health.
Gus, can you please repeat his? I still couldn't hear.
Okay. I believe he said that he just wanted to know the role that stress plays on a person's health, and what type of impact that sustaining a lot of stress, how that impacts your health, if I heard the question correctly.
So the impact of stress on the health?
Yes, sir. Did I hear your question correct, caller in Brooklyn?
Yeah, and just basically just that with like the role of like, a problem such as racism that's like a, what do you call it, taboo issue, and not talking about it.
Okay, and then I guess the part two of that was racism, since that's something that non-white people often they get in trouble talking about it or are told not to talk about it, how that too impacts stress and your health.
Yeah, this is I'm so glad that, I can give you exactly from my own experience, that what happens. The number one, I think there's two parts of this question. Number one part is the effect of stress on health. It's really, I think, one of the worst, things, in America and in any other industrialized society, in most of the world today, I think stress is the biggest contributory fact to our ill health. I think that's not an exaggerated statement. That's my experience of more than 40 years. It really is one of the major components of how to cope with stress. Is I would say one of the major components of remaining healthy and disease-free. So stress has a lot to do with your health. And the second part of the question, that racism and stress, I can give you a story. It's not a story, it's a happening, but in Allensburg, that they had, this is, as I said, this is a city with more than 95% white people, and for one restaurant, they brought a black chef from South. And after they learned from his recipes, they didn't want him there. They wanted him to go back. So this man had such tremendous stress that he developed an ulcer, and he came and saw me, and he told me that what happened. So this is what racism, being subjected to racism, how it can increase your stress and ruin your health. So that's this is, I have seen that. This is one like example which very clearly shows that how being subjected to racism actually increased your stress and ruined your health. That. So this is from a health aspect, that if we see that people, when they get discriminated or they are not treated right, they resent that, and that increases their stress level, and that ruins their health. So this is one more reason to fight racism in medicine, is because it's so clear that stress ruins health and racism increases your stress. So I think I try to answer both the parts of the question.
Did that answer your question, caller in Brooklyn?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to be quiet because there's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, someone wrote a question in the chat room. I want to get their question, but I did want to ask first, because I know you have that in one of your articles where you talk about the importance of having effective techniques to manage stress. And I think that is extremely vital information for anyone who is suffering from racism. Can you share just some of your suggestions for effective techniques to managing stress?
Well, what I think is that the stress can be managed. There are two very big, components of preventing and managing stress or handling stress. I would say one is exercise, and second is, like, I will call that spirituality. But my definition of spirituality is much wider. I don't associate that being religious means spirituality. Yes, every religion has a part of a spiritual aspect, but religion and spirituality are not the same thing. There's a spiritual element in a religion, but they are not the same thing. But I would say that an awareness of another dimension that a human being has is that what I call cosmic awareness or universal consciousness, that our body is not just our real existence. We are not limited to our 5.5 or 6 or 6.5 or 7 feet even tall person. That's not our space. That is not our existence. Our existence is much wider. We are part of the universe. What I call cosmic awareness or universal consciousness, that's what to me spirituality is. That we should, because what happens is that whenever something wrong happens to us, instead of internalizing and saying, oh, that is happening to me, we should take in a bigger sense that I'm not just myself. This is happening at a much bigger level. That racism, we become victims of racism. I have become victims of racism. My family has become victims. But still, I don't think that it's me or my family. It's a much bigger problem. This is because I think that the Western capitalist system, and that's the dominant system today in the world, that is based on racism. So it's not just my problem. It's not just my family's problem. This is the problem of the whole mankind. So that I thought, by becoming aware that what I feel, that the more you try to narrow and try to internalize and more see in isolation your problem from the problems of society and problems of the whole mankind, so the problem will be increased, your stress will increase. But you say, gee, maybe I don't have the skills to put up with people. Maybe it's me. I am doing something which is kind of, in a way, you have a guilt, that you think that you didn't probably handle things right, or you did something wrong. that the other people treated you the way they treated you. But once you realize that it's not your problem, it's a much wider problem, so you didn't do anything wrong. So in other words, it absolves your guilt, it's so that helps you. And I think that once you look at the problem from a wider aspect, that gives you the strength. Your spirit comes into that. Your consciousness comes in. You have a tremendous strength to fight back. If you just say, I'm just doing it for myself, you have limited power. But once you say, it's not just, I'm not doing it just for myself. I am doing for the whole society. I am doing to make this whole world a better place. Then, you have much more energy and power available to you. You become a stronger person. So that, to me, is the ultimate, meaning of spirituality, is to make you cosmic. You raise your awareness to cosmic level, to universal level. So that's one thing helps you with the stress. That instead of narrowing it, instead of limiting it, see in the broader perspective. See yourself not just limited, but as a part of the whole. Don't see yourself in isolation from and just limit to yourself. Don't be self-centered. Don't be selfish. But think of the universal welfare. Think of not just your concern. Think of universal concern and universal welfare. Think of your welfare is tied up with every universal welfare. You are part of the universe. So I think if you broaden your outlook, you can cope with the stress pattern. The more you cut off yourself, isolate yourself from others, your stress will increase. So there's the spiritual element of that stress. And the spiritual element of coping with stress. Number 2, I think the physical part is exercise, because the exercise helps to release endorphins, and they have the calming influence. So exercise helps very, very much in coping with stress. So if you have both exercise and spirituality, you can cope with stress much better.
Wow. Profound information. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that again. Wow. Just, I guess, with the first part about the spirituality and not getting isolated and thinking about, just the problems that you have, and thinking about it in a broader context, and thinking about your well-being as being a part of the greater well-being of the planet and the universe, because you're a part of that. I think the system of white supremacy racism does an excellent job of isolating non-white people, like you were talking about before, about breaking non-white people up so we don't think that we can work together to solve this problem. And even on a smaller level, breaking up non-white families so that people are not able to have close people to them to kind of talk to and work through things with, so they don't feel isolated, so that they don't become very self-centered. Do you have some tips on how you can kind of work through that? Because I think this system is kind of designed to get non-white people so they are isolated and feeling like they're in this all by themselves.
Yeah, I think what happens is that this is, again, problem of the Western capitalist system, that what it isolates you. It to me, it goes beyond that. It dehumanizes you. The Western capitalist system dehumanizes persons and makes a person a consumer. So it is, you are for them just a consumer rather than an individual. That. So this is so there's a conscious and subconscious effort on the part of the Western capitalist system to isolate you. It breaks you from nature. It isolates you from nature. It isolates you from society. It isolates you from your family, and then you can even use the word alienates. I think that's a little bit better than isolate. But so ultimate alienation is that it alienates one from one's own self. So it's a self-alienation. And the process of like getting united or raising your consciousness is again the reversal of that process. First of all, to unite with the world, unite with the universe, you have to unite with yourself. So you have to, first kind of end your self-alienation. And you pose a question, who am I? Am I just a body? Am I just a mind? No, you are not a body. You are not a mind. You are more than that. You are a spirit. You have consciousness. Your consciousness is part of the universal consciousness. Your awareness is a part of cosmic awareness. So you do exactly the opposite of what the Western capitalism wants you to do, what the white supremacists want you to do. That white supremacists are doing what the Western capitalism wants them to do, isolate and alienate people. And you have to do the reverse of that. You have to unite. You have to give, because once we understand ourselves, who we are, then we not only will end our alienation and isolation, but that will set a stage for uniting people, because the color of the skin, the different features, they are very superficial. If we just limit ourselves to just body, then the differences between human beings just exist at that level. But again, the mind, there are differences, the way you are raised, the way you are even prejudiced, and so those prejudices are in your mind. So if you think, I am my mind, then again there will be differences. But once you transcend your body and transcend your mind, and you say, what is my true self? I call that your outer self, which is your body. And that is made of physical elements. So that is not you. That's not the real you. That's not true you. That's your body, outer self. And then inside that outer self is your inner self, which is your mind, your memory, your intellect, and your ego. These are things on your inner self. But that's not you either. That's not your true self. Your true self is your spirit, your awareness, your consciousness. And that is universal. That is not limited. That is part of the whole. So once you transcend your body and mind, then you set a stage for unity. Then there's nobody, who you think, you realize that you are part of the whole and they are also part of the whole. So then, the whole business of dividing people ends right there. The path to true spirituality is to understand your true self. That will help you to understand the universe.
Context of White Supremacy. Wow. I'm going to perhaps see if we can make that a sound clip so people can listen to that again and think about it. I plan on listening to it again myself. This is a question from one of the folks in the chat room. I guess it's two parts. The first part is a statement. Their statement is that Western white medicine is based on military combat, conflict, and white terrorism. Do you feel that do you think this is true about white medicine? And do you think that non-white people act and react to Western medicine in this manner? And also, if you could elaborate on the military structure of the white medical industry, if you think what he said in that statement is true.
Well, I wouldn't say that the history of the last 2 centuries, which are the histories of Western domination, that military has been a very big part of this domination. So I would say that regardless of the human rights and other humanitarian things the white people have been saying, these white supremacists have been saying, but the fact has remained that they have used force, the military force, to maintain their monopoly and maintain their domination. So it is so true that even in medicine, that military plays a very big role, that attitude, because after all, the white person got his superiority, he got his supremacy by using weapons, by using military force. So that's a part of their psyche. That is so even in all the wars and of aggression, and against other nations, the white supremacists have always sided with their government, whereas the some of the wars at least, and even today, it was true in Vietnam War, it is true in Afghanistan War, true in Iraq War, that majority of the people, American people, oppose these wars. 70% or so do not approve of these wars. But the white supremacists, they very strongly support these, wars of aggression. So there is a kind of poor relationship, and medical profession is of course a part of that military aggressive, they set up, that they think that they are an integral part of that aggressive military approach. I agree with that there is that mentality.
Wow. I do see some other folks had questions. If you all have a question you'd like to ask Dr. Singh, we have about 12 minutes left in the program. The number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. Joe from DC, did you have another question for Dr. Singh? Your line should be open.
Dr. Singh, I wanted to answer one of the questions you had. You had a question where that you wanted to get information in reference to when you submitted to find out how many black doctors were fired compared to white doctors. I actually used to work for the National Practitioner Data Bank. And the data bank, for most people that don't know, whenever a doctor is reprimanded, their information actually goes to the National Practitioner Data Bank. That information is held at NIH. So what happens is normally a doctor is suspended in one state. When they go to another state, that medical facility is supposed to contact the National Practitioner Data Bank, and they're supposed to let them know that, hey, this doctor, nurse, or whoever in the medical field has been suspended. But what happened, that information was badly kept, and that's probably one of the reasons, Dr. Singh, that you wasn't able to get that information. I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm just kind of giving you some background on that particular field. So in 2002, the NIH actually contracted that information out, and I actually came to work with them in 2008. And what my job was to actually contact various health centers where these individual medical professions work, and we had to actually get all their information. So a lot of the information was just badly managed. So they started the program in '94, so it really didn't officially get cleaned up until about 2009, and even in 2009, they still had a lot of problems. So I just kind of wanted to give you some background knowledge on the National Health Practitioner Board, because you were talking about when doctors are losing their license. This particular organization helped the licensing board for all physicians or anybody in the medical field who had letters of reprimand, who was fired. But because they didn't do their job, a lot of people in the medical profession was able to go from state to state to state and get another license and work somewhere else, and you probably noticed a lot of that as well. So I just wanted to give you that information.
Thank you. But what you're right, that National Practitioner Data Bank, but that information is not public. That is, that's not for the public use. That is intended for specific purposes. But what I mean, and that doesn't give you the racial breakdown. What I think is what I said was that what we do need, we don't need. I didn't mean that we should have information available to the public, which should not be damaging to the private. Like there should be privacy. I agree, but what I mean is that we should have, maybe we don't name the individuals, but we just have some codes for saying that, okay, what I was saying, that when the adverse action has been taken, we should have that the racial breakdown. That is that just to prove or disprove that is there a racial bias in that? Is there racial prejudice in that? And one of the things that can prove or disprove that is that if we say, okay, out of people who lost their license or people who were reprimanded, there were, let us say, 15% blacks, or there may be 25% Indians, But then again, we go and see, look, what are the total number of, doctors from black, what is the percentage of it, and what is the percentage of Indian doctors. But if the people who were reprimanded or who lost their license or who had adverse action taken against them, if their percentage was higher than the number of physicians, the percentage of physicians of that group, then naturally there is a there is a bias. Then there is if there is a total number, let us say out of the total number of black physicians, I'm not saying giving any exact figure. I'm just saying giving you an arbitrary figure that let us say that there 10% of the doctors in America are blacks. Let us say. But then if we find out that the people against whom adverse action was taken happened to be 20%, doctors were blacks. So then there's a disparity that the blacks are 10%, but then the adverse action was taken against 20%. So why is there disparity? And then we have to look harder. Look at the other minorities. Look at the Hispanic, they look at the Chinese, look at the Indians. What is their total number? How many? What is the percentage of Indian doctors? But what is the percentage of Indian doctors who were punished or who had adverse action taken? So we should have for each minority. That's what I'm saying. That's what we need. That's what we need. That we should have a racial breakdown of these adverse actions.
And
that
that's
will.
what I'm trying to explain, Dr. Singh. In general, they did not do a good job of keeping the information in general. So whether you was white or black, whether your license number was correct, your social security, the information was so bad. It took us almost a year to just get some of the information. And that's what I'm saying. So even though I understand what you want, but the people who was in charge of the job of keeping all that information did not do a good job in general. So it's not so much that what you're asking for, I agree with you 100%, but talking to a person who worked with the company, with the organization that was supposed to maintain the information, they did not do a good job in general.
I agree. No, but these are two separate issues. What I'm saying is that they didn't do their job well, they didn't do a good job, and they didn't maintain a good record. But what I'm saying is that is, their work should improve. There should be more efficiency, no doubt. I agree with you that they should do their job better. But what I'm saying is that here, I give you an example that I have been in 25 years in Washington State, and in the central part of the state, that's what we call Central Washington area, I have all the doctors against whom the welfare department, the DSHS took actions against. Everybody I know, they happen to be non-whites. So, how can you explain that? How can you explain that there is no prejudice in that? Somewhere that means in that department the prejudice exists. I don't know. I have no statistics. Nobody gave me the statistics, but I know that in the 25 years I have been in Central Washington, everybody I talked to, everybody I know who had an adverse action taken against by this Department of Social and Health Welfare, what we commonly call Welfare Department, that happened to be non-white. So, I have every reason to believe from what I saw that they selectively are going after non-white doctors, But then I say, okay, how do we prove that? So the only way to prove is that if they say, look, this is the percentage of each, like community or minority and majority and every racial base or ethnic group. And here in the state, there so many are Hispanic doctors, so many are black doctors. And this is the percentage of the doctors against whom we took the adverse action. And if there is a disparity, if there's a big disparity, then let us say that if there are only 5% Hispanic doctors, in the state of Washington, but the DSHS, they went after the doctors, and 25% of them happen to be Hispanic. So that cannot be explained. That a community which has 5% representation gets stuck by 25%, 5 times more than their population. That means that there is overt or covert racism somewhere. And so that will let the facts speak for themselves, and that's what we need. We need more transparency. That I think that I have, from my experience, I have seen this, that the white doctors and their attorneys and others, that they gang up against the minority doctors. This is my experience. So is that true or not? Then the fact, let the facts speak. So what I think that in the end, what we need is more transparency. That.
Yes, and the last thing that I wanted to put out, Doc, just to confirm what you're talking about, in the March issue of the American Journal of Public Health, it found that 2/3 of doctors harbor unconscious racial biases towards African Americans. So I just wanted to put that information on in case anybody wanted to go do any research of their own.
Yeah, this is so true.
Yeah, and it's in the American
I will
Journal
agree with that.
Yep, the March issue. So thank you, Doc, and it was nice talking to you. Thanks, Gus.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I saw that March report where they were talking about the racial bias, racism, white supremacy that doctors harbor, and it plays out in the way that they talk to their patients and what have you. It pretty much confirmed everything that Dr. Singh has been sharing with us for the past couple hours. I wanted to touch on one thing. This is a little different from the medical aspect, but it's still the racism, white supremacy. This is in a different report that you authored. My 2 final questions here. You were talking about Shah Rukh Khan. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. You were talking about detaining and harassing Shah Rukh Khan, one of the most popular Bollywood stars and a hero for millions of Indians, shows the extent of American arrogance. Racism, I would suspect. What makes the matter worse is that this was not the first time. In 2009, Khan was subjected to similar treatment. Therefore, ignorance about his status and situation cannot be an excuse. Shah Rukh Khan is not the only Indian celebrity who became a victim of American arrogance. Abdul Kalam, the former president, Meera Shankar, the Indian ambassador to the U.S., and Hardip Singh Puri, the Indian ambassador to the UN, all had similar experiences. For Americans, I suspect white people, the most ordinary American is superior to the most accomplished people in other countries. Americans are the chosen and exceptional people, unlike any other people in the world. And that last sentence where you said, I just think, to be accurate, I think it's white people. For white people, the most ordinary white person is superior to the most accomplished people in other countries. And I just wanted you to share some of your thoughts with that piece with our listeners.
Yeah, I agree that, when I meant American, I generally imply that the white Americans. So you are right. I agree with you that this is the way they are raised. That that we are the chosen people, we are the exceptional people, and now that's what the American exceptionalism. That is what it's going to mean. That the term American exceptionalism didn't start like that, but now that's what most of the white Americans, at least beginning to believe the meaning of American exceptionalism is that as if the Americans are, created differently than the other people in the world, and you are so, true when you say that by that they mean American white people, so we have to be more specific, that when they say that American exceptionalism, that doesn't apply to all Americans, particularly to the minority. That in their mind, this is when we are talking, that means American whites. You are so. I mean, I agree with you that the other, the minorities do not subscribe to that American exceptionalism to the degree as the white, people, white supremacists, their understanding of the term American exceptionalism is that Americans are superior to the white Americans are superior to the other races and to the other people, that. So, and I think that any group of people, once they start believing that they are superior to the others, and that is the beginning of their downfall, that is, that arrogance, will lead to ignorance, and ignorance will lead to downfall. So once these people, so if we divide people, that some people are superior and some are inferior, we are then dividing people. We are, then, and divisions will make any country weak, So, and if we want to unite people, then we have to, the basic principle of unity is equality. That even if we are different, yet we are equal. That is the principle of, true unity. That equality can be the basis of true unity. And so, whenever there are differences, whether they are racial, whether they are political, ideological, social, cultural, linguistic, there can be differences. So the nature is diverse. There is diversity in the nature. But the principle we have to stick to is that even though we are different, yet we are equal. So that is where America is lacking today. That is the very, very, very big problem. That anybody who is different, we don't consider them equal to us. So who will determine? Who is the So in other words, when we say which is the criteria we use, which is the measure we use, then unfortunately, then when we say American culture, then it becomes the American white culture. That is, so anything other than that is others. That. So this is and that. So we are not ready to accept other cultures equivalent to the dominant culture. So that sets up a stage for cultural conflict. That sets up a stage for disunity and dividing people and antagonizing people. So that can never make the country strong. That is eventually going to make it weaker and weaker. The divisions have never made any country strong. The unity has, and the unity can be, only achieved by what we call by accepting diversity. Whereas the principle of nature is unity in diversity. If we negate diversity, then we can never unite.
Context of white supremacy. I wanted to make sure I asked as well, because you mentioned Harvard's Dr. Henry Louis Gates earlier in the program, and he has a television program that's coming on later today, Sunday, where they're doing genealogies for people, and they're doing this DNA testing so they can map out who your relatives were, 100 years ago, 150 years ago. I think Samuel L. Jackson is going to be on, John Legend. They got some other people as well. I am very suspicious about all this. I'm suspicious about white people encouraging non-white people to go and volunteer to give their DNA to white people so they can have it in their banks. I'm very suspicious. I feel like it could end up being Henrietta Lacks times 1,000,000. I just wanted to get your thoughts on all of the genealogy and DNA testing that's going on. If you have any suspicions about that, particularly given what you shared about the racism in the medical industry.
I'm always, kind of feel a little uncomfortable with this genealogy and all this, that I think this is a kind of sophisticated, way. This is like a cover up for racism, that. So I just cannot feel that anything good is likely to come out of these kind of tests and all that, But I wanted to, for some of your listeners who want to study these problems a little further, there's a CDC Health Disparities and Inequalities report which just came, and this is on www.cdc.gov. And then there's a report of the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality. And then there's another report. This agency has given a report which is called National Healthcare Quality Report and National Healthcare Disparities Report. So actually there are two reports. And this is on www.ahrq.gov. So people may who want to kind of get a little bit more information, they can go and get from these sources.
Could you give us that last address one more time?
The last is www.ahrq.gov.
Okay, I got www.ahrq.gov. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Outstanding. I'm going to check that as soon as the program ends.
But the other one was www.cdc.gov. You got that one to that too?
Yes, sir. I put them both in the chat room. www.cdc, Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, large population of black people. www.cdc.gov. I got that one as well. Wow, it has been a fantastic broadcast. I am so thankful we were able to get you on the program, Dr. Singh. I feel like I've learned a ton. I know my listeners, they have been writing and researching different aspects of how non-white medical professionals face racism, just attempting to heal people. So I know it has really inspired a lot of people. I'm just super thankful, and anytime we can have you back on the program, it would be a privilege. If you think it's been a constructive investment of your time, we just want to say thank you again, and it really was a pleasure to have you on the broadcast.
And I also want to thank you so much because you gave me a very, very good opportunity to share my feelings and perceptions and my concepts with your listeners. I am very, very grateful to you.
The pleasure is ours, sir. Again, Dr. Sawraj Singh joining us live from India. I hope you are able to have a fantastic Sunday, and please continue the outstanding work that you're doing. It is incredibly vital, and we'll definitely be keeping in touch, and hopefully we can have you back on the program again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, sir. Ooh. Context of White Supremacy. Wow. I'm going to make that a sound clip, the portion where he talked about one of the ways you can combat stress, exercise. He listed that as one, but the other, spirituality, and his breakdown of what that means to him, and not thinking of how you individually are impacted by the system of racism, but expanding that to how it impacts all non-white people and how you are part of the universe, the whole picture. Really important information. I'm going to think about that some more myself. Our second program of the day, I sit in the chat room. I'm so proud I was able to get through this, even though I'm thinking, we've done 2 programs in a day before, but it does take some mental energy to get it done, and I hope it was a constructive investment of time for people who listened in. I know some of you all were listening to both of them, listener out in Japan, 304, some of the other folks, Mr. Fine. Thank you all for all the encouragement. Some of the folks invested during the program. Thank you for that as well. Definitely appreciate anyone who invests to keep the program rolling. Super helpful in having a budget to do things, to call people from around the world and get them on the program. If you think the program is a constructive effort against racism and white supremacy, definitely invest. You can visit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com. You can also check out the wish list on Amazon.com. It's under Gus T Renegade on Amazon. Definitely appreciate all the help. Justice does as well. She's super grateful. We will be back on, I was going to say, it would be tomorrow because it is Sunday. So we'll be back tomorrow. Rain check. We're getting both of our rain checks. We missed 2 crucial programs last month. Both of the guests had to reschedule. Got them both. Actually, one of them, we had interference. The program for Monday, Miss Shafia Monroe, she'll be here. She is the president of the International Center for Traditional Childbearing. We had interference when we attempted to do this program a few weeks back where someone called her at the exact time we were supposed to do the program, and that threw things off. Rescheduled. She'll be here on Monday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Very important broadcast and right on time with racism and health, because that's what she's talking about. The best way, the healthiest way for black females, non-white females to have children. That'll be on Monday. And on Tuesday, that we will also get our rain check. The author of Whatever Happened to Daddy's Little Girl, Janetta Rose Barris. She'll be here on Tuesday, same program time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, talking about the impact, that alienation Dr. Singh was talking about when you have a family that breaks up and you have divorce and the father is not there. She talks about how that impacts, the detrimental impact that has on the black female children. That'll be on Tuesday. Very excited about both of those programs, and both of those came from Esther Stanford Kosei. She was on the broadcast last month, black female in the UK. If you did not hear that program, hit the archive. She had a ton of fantastic information. Really glad we had her on the program, and we will be following up on what she had to say Monday and Tuesday. So tune in. Great info. Dr. Kamban, Dr. Kamal Kamban should be with us next Sunday. I talked to him, and he said he would be down to come back, so he should be on the program next Sunday. Always phenomenal to have Dr. Kamban with us. Staying on the grind. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It was a hoot to see so many people listening in live at such a, I guess for the people in the States, for such a late hour. For me, it is a little after 2 a.m. in the morning, but racism, white supremacy, they do not take breaks, so try not to take too many breaks either. Thank you again to everybody for listening. 304 out in Japan for being super supportive, encouraging of the program, as well as Mr. Fine. He sent a ton of links during the program. I just made bookmark after bookmark. Great information on racism as health. See if we can build on all the great info that Dr. Singh shared with us. Thank you again so much to everyone for listening in. We will be back tomorrow, Monday evening. The prayer to the Creator, please help us to not be alienated. Please help our efforts to combat everything that racist man, racist woman, racist child are doing to us globally. Please help us to be motivated, to be active. We do not just want to sit around. Please help us to maintain the strength to continue to battle to replace white supremacy with justice. I know it gets bleak. I know it gets difficult, but this system can and will be defeated. Just give us the will, the ability, the strength to continue in our efforts. Racist man, racist woman, racist child, they will not be victorious. We will be back on Monday. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Cows signing out. Thank you.